Hello, my name is Thomas Townsend, and I am a student at CSUN and trying to get started in the real estate industry. And here I have Ariane Salam. And why don't you introduce yourself?
How's it going? I'm Aryan Salam. I live in Santa Monica. I actually went to CSUN as well, and I graduated in 2018. And yeah, we're going to go a little bit more into um, some questions. But I've been working in the real estate industry for 5.5 years now, close to 6 years. And yeah, why don't we start with your questions?
Yeah, I know you're a busy person. I know you've been really busy recently, so we'll get right into it. My first question that I do have for you is what made you interested in real estate in the first place, and why did you choose that for a path for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually got started in the real estate industry because I saw the types of opportunities that, one can spend with most of their time, as a part to, a traditional career path, just like working in a regular job. Um, you're spending at least a minimum of 40 hours of your week, most of the time away from your home, like in an office environment. And um, it was just a little bit too slow paced for me. I needed something a little bit faster. And I personally like to be in control of my income. I don't like to be necessarily just paid for your time. I prefer to have a little bit of control over how much income you generate. And then, of course, the real estate industry is one of the number one industries where you can create passive income, which um, that's really what drew me mostly into real estate.
Okay.
Being able to kind of eventually down the road, you can kind of have this path where you're not necessarily having to do anything, if that makes sense. Like you can do something if you would like, but if you ever need to, not do something for a while, and still have streams of income from rental properties and whatnot, um, you're able to do that and go vacation for a couple months or a couple years if you would like. Is freedom.
Yeah,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah.
All right. And our next question would be what is was your initial pathway, you know, that has gotten you to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So growing up, probably like starting around 18, 19 years old, I started doing a lot of property management. I have some family members who own some property in Santa Monica, and like Las Vegas, for example. So I started just doing property management when I was a little bit younger, just helping out, like show some properties, in Santa Monica, just like small, like one bedroom places, nothing too crazy. And that's essentially how I kind of started getting the grasp of what the real estate industry is like. And then I got my real estate license when I was 21. I was a junior at CSUN. Um, and for my senior year at CSUN, actually, in the 400 level business capstone class, I took an internship. You had a decision to do an internship at a company, and I did an internship at a real estate brokerage. Um, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of work, but I really enjoyed like the flexibility and the like day-to-day activities, like what you're really doing with your time.
Uh,
Nice.
Moving on to the next one. What was your initial day-to-day responsibilities that you did mention a little earlier? What was that like when you first started off?
Yeah. So when I first started off my day-to-day, um, so when I was doing the internship at the real estate brokerage in my senior year at CSUN, kind of like my daily activities really were more so involved like in just doing kind of administrative work and office work at the brokerage because I was really getting like put into the atmosphere. And then I helped a lot actually with like routing a high volume of calls and a really high amount of emails that were coming in every day, making sure that it would get to the correct person, making sure that everything was being acknowledged, at least because acknowledgement is usually number one. At least if somebody's reaching out to you, they want to make sure that you're able to kind of get back to them, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I did like a lot of admin and office work. I kind of just did a lot of like assistant work as well, like real estate assistant work, which was really good because again, it's just kind of being in that atmosphere is really like where you're kind of learning and understanding the grasp of the industry. And then after the internship, so I got my real estate license when I was 21, and I started being like a full-time agent around the later end of my 21st year. Um, and I worked as an agent for like 4 years, 5 years. I did a lot of leases, so I was showing a lot of rental properties, new building developments.
Yeah, that's a lot of day-to-day activities right there, but it sounds like you really are passionate about your work. And you mentioned an organization. What organization did you actually work for, and how do you feel about them overall?
It's a great question. So I worked at two different organizations. Um, and it was basically I worked at a really big brokerage, Coldwell Banker, and then I worked for a little bit more of a boutique brokerage that was just located in Brentwood, like right off of Sunset Boulevard. And it was two completely different experiences. Most really big brokerages, I have a couple different friends and colleagues who also went on and they like went to different really big brokerages like Coldwell Banker, Marcus and Millichap, Keller Williams, all these different brokerages, and it's usually completely a different type of a feel than these like boutique brokerages because like they have such a high amount of agents, like they have so many people that work at the company that they don't necessarily like teach you. They're just like, okay, come work and go do your thing. Because like being a real estate agent, for example, is like you have your own business, right? You're a contractor technically. You're not an employee. Um, so it's completely up to you to make your income. So if you're not making money, then Keller Williams doesn't really care if you're not doing anything, because most of these like really big agencies, for example, like Coldwell Banker, they will charge you a monthly fee, for example, just to be an agent and have your license hung up at that brokerage. So like when you're an agent, you have a salesperson license, and then the brokerage has a broker license,
Yeah.
right? So when you're like an agent underneath a broker, most brokers will charge you like say like 200 $300 a month, like for the softwares and like this and that. So if you're not producing, they don't really care because like they're still making money off of you. So
Oh,
when you do start producing, they take these really big cuts. For example, like a lot of these big agencies, they take like a 70-30 cut. So like say you sell a property for $100,000, you get a commission of, let's say, what, 2.5%. Let's say you get 25K as a
yeah.
commission. You're going to be usually keeping 70% of it, 30% you're giving to the broker. And for these really big brokerages, if you think about it like this way, you're working at these massive brokerages that are taking like 30% of the work that you did, right? And they're not really doing anything for you, because if they're not teaching you, they're really just getting this 30% like for nothing,
Yeah.
hypothetically, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
but when you go to these boutique brokerages, it's like really individualized, like broker. So like you are working directly underneath someone, right? That's like teaching you like the ropes, right? They're taking you on these crazy meetings and these appointments. So like it's almost as if you're not really, like having your own business. It's like you're almost like a part
You-
of somebody else's business.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Whereas like when you're
Yeah.
working at a really big brokerage, these really, really, really big brokerages, like they literally will just say, okay, good luck. Here's everything that you need. Like, good luck. Like, go do your thing. But these boutique brokerages, like, they will care because they're smaller, and usually like that's what kind of like the definition of a boutique brokerage is, right? Like they're a little bit smaller. They're like, not really like big corporate type of a vibe. Um, so those are the companies I worked at, and I would definitely 150%. If I was like to do it again, I would definitely go to a boutique brokerage.
Moving on to the next question. In class, we discussed a lot about the role of ethics that it plays in the real estate industry. And I was just wondering if you've ever had an encounter with ethical dilemma, either that you were forced to deal with or that you witness your coworker having to deal with.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have two pretty interesting ones that I'll just bring up that I've faced in the last like 5-6 years working in real estate. Um, One of them, which kind of blew my mind in terms of how these luxury buildings work, is there was one building that was being built in Santa Monica, and this developer is a massive developer. They make buildings across the whole United States. They built a building, and a majority of the building was glass,
Yeah.
and they cheaped out on the glass. And the way that they cheaped out is because they installed glass themselves, and they took it upon themselves to be like the window manufacturer and the window installer.
Oh,
And this is a company that builds real estate. They build like property. They don't like build glass, and they don't install glass.
okay.
So all the
Yeah.
glass in the building was not installed properly, like the seals around the edges and everything. Especially in Santa Monica, they're getting a lot of sun, so those seals, like over time, like let's say 10 years, 15 years, they started like not being how they were supposed to be.
Hmm.
And a couple times of the year when it rains here, like some of those days like rained really hard. I remember like 5, 6 years ago, and
Hmm.
there was like water just entering into all these people's condos. And
Oh,
these are people who are paying like minimum 2 million up to like 10 million for a condo, for one condo, and they have like water coming through their
yeah.
windows, you know.
That's no good.
So um you know to my point, the ethical dilemma right there is, you have a developer who's like cheaping out on a part of the project so that they can obviously pull in a little bit more money, right,
Yeah.
and profit. Um, it's really interesting. Sometimes you meet a lot of different types of people. Unfortunately, a lot of people, like at least in this city, I would say, like in LA, there's a lot of like shady people, which kind of sucks. But you just gotta make sure you surround yourself with like the right people,
Yeah.
and the people who like actually have like some a little bit of heart,
Yeah.
rather than just like having like one other thing on their mind.
Better ethic.
um yeah, no, for sure, dude.
Moving on to our next question. Is there anything about your pathway that you actually wish that you've done differently? That, either prior information or, going to A or B or.
Yeah, probably one thing that I would do is I would probably, if I could go back to CSUN, actually, I would probably not get a degree in marketing, and I would probably get a degree in finance.
Is there, you know, anything that you wish, you're more well informed about in the industry other than, I know you mentioned a lot of things earlier, but is there anything else that you wish you've known before heading into it that, would give you a leg up?
Yeah, I think I would probably, what I wish I would have known, prior to, would probably be, um, understanding and realizing like how much of a grind it really is to be an agent. That's kind of like one of the things that intrigued me into the industry, but it's also one of the things I wish I really knew, like how like brutal that was.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes when you're young you get lazy and you want to like do other things,
Yeah.
but you need to remember that like this is a business and you need to keep grinding. Otherwise, like if you slow down, like you're more than likely going to continue to slow down. So it's like early habits like build, like early habits that you build are extremely important, like when you're working kind of for yourself.
Yeah.
um,
Risk and reward is high, I guess, for
right, there's
at
a lot
least.
of risk but there's a lot of reward, right, right.
Okay. Well, cool. And well, thank you for everything. I just have one last question before you head back to working really hard. Is there any tips that you would have for someone like me or for anyone else that is even thinking about pursuing the real estate industry?
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good question. The number one thing I would say is that you need to like seek knowledge, because like that's like the most important thing in this industry. Depending on like where you go within the industry that you want to work. Um, Again, like I said, like knowing more is like, it doesn't hurt to know more, right? Like there's no negative of hurting more. There's only positive. It's just upside.
I mean, I really appreciate you answering all these questions I had for you. You provided a lot of insightful information that I was actually very unaware of the vibe or stuff that you've learned along the way. So I appreciate that, Ariane, and thank you so much
Of
for your
course,
time.
for sure.
Well,
Definitely no problem, man.